Hello and welcome to Creative Vitality Jam Sessions. Here we have intimate conversations with extraordinary dance and theater artists about reimagining creativity and supporting and building community. CVJS and I walk as allies and in solidarity for equality, justice, and respect. Black Lives Matter. I'm Helen Pickett, and today's guest is Nicole Haskins, freelance choreographer and trainee program manager for Ballet, Idaho. We have known each other since 2007. Welcome. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
It's so good to see you. It's been a hot minute. Of course, for everybody, it's been a hot minute because of the pandemic, but you look great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, so congratulations on this position as trainee program manager of Ballet, Idaho. That's amazing.
Thank you. It's been a whirlwind. And actually next year I'm going to get to be the program director, which is really exciting.
Congratulations. And you live in Boise now?
I do. I'm not actually there right now, but I've been going back and forth because as probably for a lot of us, the pandemic was a lot of craziness. So
Yeah.
it's been a very interesting and growing year, to say the least.
All right. So actually, first question, what part of the world are you in?
I am right now in Richland, Washington, which is part of Tri-Cities, which you've probably never heard of, except it's where the Manhattan Project was and the first place they found gravitational waves. So who knew?
I thought the Manhattan Project was down in New Mexico.
Maybe part of it, but they like built Tri-Cities to, and like I think only 100 people knew what they were doing, and the rest were just here.
Amazing. Wow. And so, because I know your family's in Venice, is that right?
Yes.
California? Yeah.
California.
A fellow Californian, how would I forget that? So Nicole, well, may I ask you why you're where you are right now?
Because my boyfriend lives here, and
Great.
this is where I was the resident choreographer for a wonderful ballet school, Tri-Cities Academy of Ballet, and they have a studio company called Mid-Columbia Ballet. So I was here as their resident choreographer. Then I got the job in Boise, so I was kind of driving back and forth for a while.
Hey, wow, well, you're in a beautiful part of the country.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
We get seasons, which is nice.
What?
We get seasons, unlike Venice Beach, which is just 70 and 70 pretty much.
Well, I gotta say, being again from Southern California like you, I've come to appreciate it all because in Philly where I live now, we have I feel like, and I think it's because I was home an entire 14 months, which hasn't happened probably in my adult life, that I'm in one place for 14 months. I really appreciated experiencing the change of every season. That was remarkable. When you travel a lot, you're plopped into these seasons and it's wonderful. But to actually do that kind of slide from one, season to the next was remarkable.
Yeah.
It was really enjoyable. And like you, I learned so much during this time, also about nature. Yeah. So Nicole, let's go back to you. I would like to start with the mantra you live by. I thought this is a great place to start. Art is risk made visible. So there's so much ephemerality in general in art, right? And risk. Is part of the risk the attempt for you at harnessing that potent energy of the ethereal state?
I mean, I think that's much more deep than when I related to the quote. I heard it at some lecture I went to, and it really resonated in me with this idea that to put yourself out there is a risk. And that's sort of what art is. You're putting a piece of yourself out there, whether you're a dancer and you're putting some of your artistry, your hopes and dreams out there. If you're a choreographer, your ideas, something you really want to create. If you're a director, the point you think the company should go, where you think ballet should go. You're taking those risks and you're putting that out there for people to judge or criticize or enjoy and love. And you don't really know what's going to happen. And the second part of it to me that I think is really important is that you kind of give it away. Like you put a part of yourself out there and you don't get to then edit and take it back and go back to the drawing board and edit the movie. Like you're just putting it out there, that performance, that piece, that day. And I really love the like finality of that in a way, but also the humanity in it, that you have to really step up to the plate every day and put your best self out there. And that's hard. That's hard at sometimes, especially when you get more personal, especially when it's something you really care about. That can be really difficult to do. So I think anyone who does art and is creative is taking huge risk every day. And I'm so grateful that they put it out there for me to enjoy and for other people to experience as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you say artists put a part of themselves out there. I would say that we are kind of, I don't think it's a part. I think in the truest sense, all of us, the entirety of us,
Yeah.
we're putting that out there as an artist. I think that part is almost completely exposure, right? Like a true exposure, full exposure. It's like you're thinking of a camera or something. But I think the ideas maybe that we put out there are parts of ourselves that we decide to expose greatly at one point or another through the ideas that we have as I'm speaking as a choreographer, but also as a dancer. I mean, because every role that one does as a performing artist, I guess you could highlight one part of us more, but we're still, I mean, it's like an offering. It's still all there.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the anticipation, and that's kind of like the beautiful magical key of art is, how much do we want to expose? Because think about it. I mean, we're completely on stage. We're completely, So I just love the quote.
Well, you can use it anytime. It was not mine to begin with, but I feel like it's summed up kind of everything I feel. And it's a nice challenge to myself too, to know that, to keep reminding myself to put myself out there, to take those risks, and kind of be in the moment.
It's worth it. So, a part of this question is for you, it's worth it. For you, you want to live up to this quote, but how do you impart this knowledge to someone else when you're working as a leader? How does this change or reimagining figure into your code of being, or how you can teach this code of being? And do you find this quote also instrumental in how you impart knowledge, I guess?
Absolutely. I mean, I learned so much this year being in the front of the room. I mean, I thought I knew a lot being a choreographer. I've been in the ballet world for a long time, but there's nothing like hands-on learning to see how much you don't know and can learn from. And I think for me, it was with my students being visible with my risk, to not pretend that I had it all figured out, to not pretend that I had this perfect life and everything worked out, but to really be vulnerable and share some disappointments, some things that I wish I had done better, things that I saw that I really admired about people, and to kind of be my truest self to them, to help them see that there is no right path. And I think the other part of that was I tried really hard to create a safe environment where they could take those risks. I mean, I think we had the luxury that we were kind of isolated on our own. So it was kind of built in that it was a little safe place. We weren't going out having all these people come in. But I think it's so important for anyone taking a risk, especially if you're maybe new to taking a risk, to feel really safe and supported, but also kind of a little bit of a nudge into the deep end. I don't like the, sink or swim mentality, but I think if I only coddle you, you're never going to grow. But to know that you might try to grow and it might not work out, and then we'll go back to the drawing board together. That, I'm here to open doors for students to decide where they want to walk through, and I'll help them as best they can. But it's not my job to kind of tell them which path to take. It's my job to show them the array of options that they can choose what's best for them.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So you yourself recently retired from a 14-year professional concert dance career, where you danced with the Washington Ballet, Smuin Contemporary Ballet, and Sacramento Ballet, which is where we first met.
Yep.
That was my second piece that I ever did was with Sacramento Ballet. Yeah,
that was the first year as an apprentice.
I remember. In your 14-year journey, what concepts or life lessons paved your way to you wanting to be a leader in your chosen field? And what ideas or views did you know you needed to leave behind?
Well, there's a lot in there. I mean, I think I was very fortunate in a way that when I first started choreographing, I didn't really realize that's what I was doing. I just liked putting movement to music. And even at my ballet school, it was just fun. It wasn't a goal. It wasn't a step on a life plan. It was just, I really enjoy this. I'm going to do this. And then I was really fortunate that when I went to Sacramento Ballet, they had a choreographic workshop. So again, I didn't have to have like a plan. It was just, oh, I like this. This is like invigorating to me. I'm going to keep doing it. And then people would ask me to do other things. So I just kind of, I don't want to say fell into it because I was purposeful in making the pieces, but I think in a way, not trying to get to a final point or a destination allowed me time to just enjoy the process and really develop that deep love for what I was doing. And the second half of that was when I went to Washington Ballet and first saw like a second company type situation. And I saw these incredible dancers, beautiful artists who just needed a little direction, a little guidance, maybe had never done a corps de ballet piece before, just needed those little extra things. And from there, it kind of always percolated in my mind. How could I use the things that I've learned in dance, the confidence I gained in dance, the skills I've seen work well in dance, and really impart that to help dancers transition from that student atmosphere where you really aren't allowed to think for yourself very much, at least back in my day, to the professional realm where you have to think for yourself and you have to take ownership of your dancing, your artistry, but also your life. You're not given that clear-cut structure. So that was really the impetus for me of wanting to be that helpful voice. I felt like I was really lucky to have teachers who were, again, both supportive but challenging. They really demanded that everyone show up and give their best, whatever that was. And that was success, was giving your best every day. And they did the same. And so for me, trying to flip the narrative of it's just about what job you get or what rank you become or what part you get, but really, how are you enjoying the day in, day out investigation of your life, basically? And what do I have to leave behind? That's a very good question. A lot.
Don't
But I think why I say a lot is just that these are my experiences. And they're, when I tell stories sometimes, it all seems so happenstance. It just like these things happen. And that's not true. There were a million little things I did to get to where I went. but that was my journey. And so I think if I go into a room and think everyone's going to follow my path, that everyone's going to understand a step because that's how I understood it, then I'm really isolating only those few people that are just like me or very similar to me. So I think to be in leadership, the biggest thing I have to do is kind of, okay, this is what I know. And I can say, this is how I found it. And then here's 4 other ways that didn't work for me, but like, I'll give you just as much time on those. You know, these were something as simple as like, these were the point shoes that worked for me. But I'm not going to say that, okay, you all have to fit into my shoes now. And this is the only thing you can do. Because someone might have a size 11 foot and like, that's not, that's not going to serve them. So I think it's hard to notice every day where you're, or I shouldn't say, where I'm coming in and giving what I know or what worked for me versus coming in and looking at the room and seeing how many options can I give them to, again, give them the opportunity to take the reins. And that's something when I look back on my own career, I don't think I took that ownership of that I deserved to be happy in my choices, that I deserved to really be in charge. It was, I want to dance, so great, this is where I'm dancing, like, that's all fine. Instead of really thinking, is this as fulfilling as I want it to be? Is this, pushing me to grow? Have I learned what I need to learn and now it's time to learn more? It was really, I think, the mentality of like, you join a company and you stay at a company and that's what you do. And I think it's been really interesting looking back at, by going different places, how many people I met and how many different points of view I got to learn. And that's only enhanced my ability to help people because it isn't just one way. There's a million ways. And I think my job is to, again, present all of those and let them use their curiosity to discover what is the best for them at this time. And that might change. And then they'll have this whole toolbox of things as they grow, as they progress, as they, change. We all change. We're not all the same. I'm definitely not the same as I was that first time you met me. Was it 16 years ago? But I think sometimes we don't notice it because we're in our everyday. So it's kind of taking that step back and looking at where you've made those changes and how you made those changes and how I can support others.
Yeah. So a couple of points. First of all, I worked with you 3 times actually in your career on 3 different pieces. And I have to say, I never experienced you as someone who was in the room and didn't know who you were. I experienced a dancer, even as an apprentice, that you had a sense of self, and you definitely had such a deep love for the craft that exuded from you no matter what you did. And sorry, it's allergy season, so the nose is just like, what? And also your musicality. Musicality is not just having innate musicality. There's a lot of choice and listening in musicality. And choice and listening are big people words, are words that people know. They know how to utilize those concepts when they have a sense of self. So that's one comment I wanted to make about you as an artist. And the comment I wanted to make about, very astute, what we were talking about coming into the room with, I use the term toolbox, with an array of possibilities for the room. But it's really, for me, it's like it's an array of possibilities for an array of human beings.
Yeah.
It's not the room for me. It's that when I go in as a choreographer, and I know it's not for you too, because I know you a little bit, but when I go into the room, and I know you also love semantics, that's why, in talking about this like this, it's like I now scan the individuals, and I get a sense from watching them, and always make it one of my mantras to say, how do I make it understandable? How do I make it enjoyable? How do I give the power back to each and every one of these people? And I hear you, and that's what you're saying. I was just chiming in something about hearing the term the room. I was like, oh yeah, I use that too, but actually that's a way to like refine it a bit more, to say, well,
Absolutely.
it's never just a room, right?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I know what you were saying. This is me just,
No, I think you're absolutely right. And actually, I remember when you came to work with us on pedal, you probably don't. And there was one move where you hit your elbow, and I was not hitting my elbow the way you wanted me to at all. And I think everyone had left. It was like and it was like hours of, and I was just, I'm going to get this. Like, I will. And finally you stopped and you were like, you know what? I'm not explaining this right. Let's go home. You're doing a great job. Like, we'll pick this up tomorrow. And that shifted completely my mindset, because it wasn't my responsibility to fix it on my own. And I'm sure someone else had said that. I know as a teacher, you're like, I see this 100 times. You don't hear, but it was like said in a way I understood, and seriously changed my entire outlook. And I think in a way started me on this path of, it's a team effort. And I hadn't really put my finger that the school I went to, the people in the front of the room were like, I was very lucky that I got to work with all these people throughout my career, who the person in the front of the room was putting the exact same amount of effort as the person in the back of the room. And because of that, when the person in the front of the room wasn't, I was a little like, well, wait a minute. Why am I like here on this raft by myself drowning? So I can't say I'm perfect at this every time. I'm still learning. But as when I am in the front of the room, I try my hardest every time to really be on the same team as the dancer. How can I help you reach your best? And you know what? Maybe my step isn't the right one. I'd rather cut the step and let you feel the dancer so successful, and it's your piece by the end of it, than my ego needing this like one lift to look like it did in a dream I had. That it really is this like team effort.
Things can mess you up.
Well, and it's always like the man's just like, I don't have 4 arms. And I'm like, well, that's disappointing. It really worked when I thought of it yesterday. But again, I try to remind myself always to come into the room with that beginner's mindset that maybe I don't know. And I think when I have choreographed and allowed dancers to really let it fit their body, to really work with me, the piece is a million times better than when I am like, but this was my idea and it was brilliant. So that's kind of been my approach to things, is that, I am in the front, I am coming in with experience and ideas, but that doesn't mean that I can't learn as well.
That's right. Yeah. So speaking of leadership, going down the same, yeah, so you became the resident choreographer, as you said, of the Mid-Columbia Ballet, and soon after, I'm just reiterating for the question, named the program manager, next year director for Ballet Idaho's trainee program in its inaugural year. So this is actually the first year too. You write, and I quote, "With this program, you are able to put your mission into action to inspire, empower, and support ballet dancers in their pursuit of cultivating technique, artistry, and intelligence needed to thrive." So we've gone into much of this already, but as program manager, are you teaching class? Are you running rehearsals? Are you choreographing? And do you have a sense of things that you'd already like to shift even with this short time?
Well, I'm doing everything. I I think this past year was kind of a fluke because of COVID, we were our own little pod, and I pretty much was there with them all the time.
Wow.
I'm sure 6 hours with me was not always their favorite thing in the world. Uh, so I'm actually really curious to see what happens this year because they're going to get to be with the company. We're going to have performances. It's going to be a completely different can of worms, basically. I think the biggest thing for me was, you know, the job kind of came about so, again, I feel like all my stories are like this, like so randomly, they were gonna do one thing and then, COVID kept persisting. So they brought me in. I was at the time in grad school as well, because why not? So it was kind of a whirlwind. So I think the first thing I'm changing is that I'm taking the whole summer to prepare and have time to process everything that I learned. I think the biggest thing for me was realizing that not only are these dancers transitioning from student to professional, but they're really transitioning from kid to an adult. And that was something I was 18 a long time ago, so I don't really remember that as much as I maybe should have taken some notes. So I think we had COVID. What was most incredibly impressive to me were here were dancers in this huge transition point of their life, most of them away from home for the first time. And they worked so hard with no outside accolades, no shows, no, reward at the end. They showed up and dealt with like a pretty crappy hand that they were dealt, nothing's happening. What is going to happen in the future? Like, we're kind of rehearsing things to like show the person teaching us the steps. Like, that's not the most exciting. And they, like, I really felt like a proud mama almost every day because it was hard, it was tiring, it was not fun at times, and they just loved dancing and they wanted to be there. And the growth that they found without casting, without performances, without getting to show off for the company, just the 10 of them in a room was really incredible to see. And I think that for me is what I want to do. There's a reason I didn't put in my mission that I want to make professional dancers, because for some people, that is not what is their truest self. And that's great. That's not a like failure. I think we have this like black and white idea of success and failure. And I think doing a year of dancing in a program is a success.
It is.
And then whatever you do after that is another success.
Exactly, because these are the people also that will become audience.
Oh my gosh.
For dance. I mean, arts and dance in particular, I think make every human being a more rounded, more educated, more, in tune with themselves person. And yeah, beautifully said, because we're guides, aren't we?
Yeah.
Hey, I have to, excuse me, but when you sent me your notes, you did not mention you were in grad school.
Well, I only have 9 credits and I'm not anymore.
Oh, okay. What were you in grad school for?
Athletic counseling.
Oh.
I, was trying to keep busy.
Yeah.
And so I applied to a couple places, one in Scotland, to just, might as well learn some new skills. And I kind of figured that these other sports are getting much more into sports psychology, like how to take care of the whole athlete, dealing with stage fright, that it would be a great opportunity to learn about how like more like larger sports with bigger endowments to fund things, how they're doing it and take those skills to the studio.
Right.
And it was really eye-opening, the 9 credits I did. And I think the biggest thing I learned is that as the main teacher director, you can't also be the life coach support system. It doesn't work together.
That's true.
And I think I had this naive vision that like, I'm going to be the positive influence. I'm going to change everything. And I think that was great that I had that enthusiasm. But I think as a leader, it's my job to bring in the people who can be those support systems and offer the more mental health side of things so that it's really heard. And it's not your mom telling you like, meditate for 5 minutes and you'll feel better, but that they're given.
Right, but we don't listen to our parents.
Exactly. I definitely have learned a lot. So I'm so glad I took those classes. I would love to go back to it at some point. I actually really just liked counseling in general. Because again, it's that idea of listening without your own life experiences on top, but you're really listening to what that person is experiencing and seeing how you can reflect back to them what you're hearing in a non-biased way. And I do think that's a little what I do in the studio, hopefully sometimes most of the time, or I am aiming to do in the studio, is to see the dancer, reflect back to them in an unbiased way what I think I'm hearing from them, I'm seeing from them, things they could maybe take to work upon, but really, again, give it back to them, and the onus is on them to make those decisions and choices. Because I think that's how you make habits, is you decide, instead of maybe wanting, but you decide, like, these are the steps I'm going to take to get from A to B.
Yeah. Choice, just learning, choice making, first choice, best choice, because your choice can be changed in the next moment. Just make choices. Yeah. Absolutely. As a freelance choreographer, you have been commissioned by Richmond Ballet, Oregon Ballet Theater, Sacramento Ballet, Dayton Ballet, Amy Cyworth's Imagery, the National Choreographic Initiative, and Smearman Ballet Company. In addition, you were awarded the New York Choreographic Institute's Commission Grant, the Fellowship Grant, and participated in the Institute's spring session in New York. What has freelance work taught you as opposed to this full-time position you find yourself in? Is there something you, as a choreographer, is there something you need to say in your work? And what ideas along those lines burn in you? What do you need to be, do you need to be saying something in your work? And then I guess the question is, and I think you've answered it in no uncertain terms, is, artistic director part of your vision?
These are great.
I have
great questions, just putting me out there. Yes, looking great. I know, I'm like, what is my hair doing? I will say it was nice not being around mirrors for a while. I realized the dancers were like, oh, hello. Yeah, we had a studio without mirrors, and I think my students didn't like it for the first half, but then loved it when we went back to a studio with mirrors, because you really can just feel yourself instead of judge yourself, which is a whole other thing. So
yeah, go ahead.
Those are great questions. I think for me as a choreographer, I want my dancers to feel fulfilled. I think that is my number one goal, because I love making pieces. I love music. I love, getting to sit in the audience and see something come to life. But I don't know if it's because so much of my choreography was done on my coworkers both at SMU and Contemporary Ballet and at Sacramento Ballet. But there's just something about seeing a dancer go from the first day of rehearsal and what, my initial thought of them was, what I like first glance thought they could do or what I would do with them, and then see where that transpires by the end of the piece. I feel like I want to make a piece that the audience enjoys, that gets us somewhere. I don't think I'm trying to change the world. I don't have pieces that are about, really deep subject matter normally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of my pieces are about joy in different forms. A lot of my pieces are about personal experiences, me kind of putting my diary out in dance form. But if I look back on all my pieces, my biggest success was just watching dancers take the reins and run. And as a freelance choreographer, I feel so lucky that I've gotten to meet so many different dancers and see their experiences. I think some of my favorite moments are when I put the piece together and someone's like, oh, that person never does the lead. They're always, and it's like, how? I don't, what? And I think it's such a gift that as a choreographer, I can come in and maybe change a perspective of a director, maybe give a dancer a new side of themselves that maybe they hadn't tapped into. I think that's a huge responsibility and gift that is given to me when I can go different places. And even in companies I danced in, like, what can I see in my coworker that maybe they're not always given? Maybe they're always the pas de deux person, or they're always this, but maybe I can find a little something that I see in the back or in the classroom that I can just kind of lift them up and give them that permission to soar.
Yeah.
And I think it's always hard to do that because then I'm going to places where I don't necessarily know the dancers. So again, it's that risk of I'm going to prepare to have no plan, basically. Like I'll prepare a lot in the beginning, but like with very loose pencil sketches so that I can make for the dancers in front of me, or I can remake the piece for the dancers in front of me. Because it is theirs at the end of the day. It's not my piece. It's, I helped guide them, but I always felt as a dancer, like I was given the responsibility of like singing the piece. I was bringing it to life. And I loved that responsibility to just let it all out on stage and really give my all to, the paintbrushes that I was given, to make the piece happen.
Yeah, beautiful.
Um,
So I think there was one more part of that. Do you want to become an artistic director?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think that's my honest answer, in part because I love being in the studio with dancers. And I am very aware, especially after this year, how much other stuff you have to do as a director. And I also know that I work better as a team. So I kind of feel like if I was going to be an artistic director, I would want to be with a team. Because I think if I was solo, by yourself, you have to make choices. You have to, make things happen. And therefore, you have to kind of trust that you are right. And I think that's a very weighted responsibility because I'm not always right.
None of us are.
Yeah. So I feel very fortunate that I have friends who I can call and be like, this is my idea. And they can be like, that's really great. Have you thought about this? Have you considered that? And the idea I end up with is 10 times better than what I came up on with my own. Because
sorry to interrupt you, but don't you think being an artistic director is being part of a team?
Oh, absolutely. But I think what I'm saying is I wouldn't want to be an artistic director unless I knew I had that team.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a huge responsibility. I care so much about the art form. I mean, it really meant a lot to me when you said you could tell I just love dance, because I ballet has been my life, and I'm not always happy with it. I'm not always thrilled with the choices it makes, but the true performance of ballet just sings to my soul. There's something about, I don't know if it's just that like comforting thing that I grew up with it. It's everything that my life has kind of been about, but I just love ballet. I think it's beautiful. I think it's heart-wrenching. I think it's incredible how we tell stories with no words, just our bodies, that we can have the same dancer, choreographer do two completely different things and it's still part of them. There's this rainbow of places that it can go. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing my part to keep the love of ballet alive. And that means it might have to shift over time. That might mean we might have to rethink a lot of things. But I really want to be wherever I can be to help the people I'm around appreciate and love and grow within the ballet world.
Yeah. 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 I agree. And I did really of course lock into your words of shifting and growing, because the ballet world does need to do that.
Yes.
And I was a part of that with Billy. So it's like, it's not even like a big, fist in the air, this has got, defiant thing. For me, it's kind of like, well, of course, because hello, change is the only concept. So of course things have to shift and change. Of course we have to grow in our ideas. Of course, being inclusive and having the ballet world look like the citizens of this country. Of course, all that it's an of course. It's not like a defiant gesture for me. It's like, well, duh, yeah, this is what ballet can and should be.
No, absolutely.
And yes. What?
It did before. Everything's always changing. I mean,
change. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
everything's fluid. Not unless it's just like, this is the video we made. So like, yes, that's not going to change unless you remake the video. But it's a living, breathing thing. I mean, that's what I love. That's what I miss so much about live performance. You don't get the same immediacy in a video, because you can rewind it. You can, on the stage, it's that day, it's what happened, and you have to come 5 times and you might get 5 different shows. There's something
about absolutely right. And at the same time, I'm so proud of the dance world.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm going to say this really overused word, but we pivoted in like the performing arts world so amazingly.
Oh.
And we were like, okay, so this is what we have to do now. Let's do it, and I think, well, at least for me, because I did that very same thing, it wasn't about replacement. It was about, and you just said it, and this is how I am, it was about discovery, like, oh, something new to learn, so yeah.
This is going to change so much, because I mean, now we know people can be anywhere in the world and take a ballet class.
Yes.
We now know we could do, like, if you had asked someone 2 years ago, why would we do that? I can bring in a choreographer to Zoom in. We had an entire piece created over Zoom for our trainees.
Yeah.
And yes, I would love to have them in person, but if it's between, they can't get their schedule to work or on Zoom, like, now we know that this is an option.
Yeah.
I just think that you were exactly right. The ballet world did such an amazing job. The dance world in general, of pivoting, of being creative, of not just sitting on their hands, but what can I do? We need a ballet class. Okay, who can I call? Using the network that we have. And I think, I hope that this just expands how we do things. I hate the idea of going back to normal, because why would we ever go back? we've now opened up Pandora's box of all these amazing things that we're able to do. I'm not saying get rid of live performance at all, as you know, I love that to my heart and core, but the possibilities are infinite.
Yeah.
And I think this has only showed us how many more things we weren't tapping into.
And also, let's not forget of making ballet. I'm talking about ballet in particular. I'm not lumping ballet and dance together. I'm saying ballet because that's predominantly my world.
You too.
It's to keep making it relevant.
Absolutely.
And because I think other kinds of dance have done a better job at that. Yeah, so I think, it's the path is the journey, it's the journey. And like you said, it's not the going back part of the journey. It's recognizing history and then making the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you and I share a love for writing. I think I already knew that before because I would watch you in your journals in the studio. You were commissioned by Dance Data Project, a fantastic project, by the way. Liza Antema, um, her whole idea is making huge inroads with actual data and science behind, what we've always known. And she is just a remarkable force. She really is. So Dance Data Project, big respect. And if anybody listening, if it's the first time you've heard about this, please look into it. It's a really important organization. Anyhow, you were commissioned by Dance Data Project to write about ways to rethink the status quo of ballet, just talking about it, to allow for more opportunities in leadership for women in ballet. So we've covered, I think, a lot of those ideas, but I think there are some ideas that we didn't cover.
No, absolutely. I think the more I think about it, the more I write about it. I think there's two like polar sides that we really have to address. And I think that's the training and how, especially we train young girls in ballet and how that contrasts with how we train young boys, which I think could also be in the society at large, but that's a whole nother issue. But I do think that plays such a impactful role down the line. But I also think it's people at the top, again, really reflecting and having that beginner's mindset about the status quo and how things have been done and where they can make those shifts. So I think a big thing, just as simple as women majoritarily do the corps de ballet work, and how is that spoken about and how is that addressed, and what time does that take away from maybe the space for them to create in a studio? If their rehearsal day is booked and the men have a lot of free time, well, of course men are going to have time to choreograph. So where can you notice that? Not that that's a good or bad thing, it just is. But how can we reflect upon that and make changes so that people are getting equal opportunities to experience choreography? I've noticed in my career path that it's often male dancers who are asked to be in the front of the room and be the ballet master and get those opportunities to try. And I don't think the same initial offering is given to as many women to just try out being in these leadership roles, to have that responsibility. I think a big thing the ballet world just needs to work on is training its leaders. I mean, I have learned so much this year, but it was all hands on. I was learning as I went how to navigate this. And I've been really fortunate that I've met some really wonderful people who will give me advice and really help me. But I don't think there's that same like inroad of, yes, you're a dancer now and you should enjoy every moment of it, but you're gonna stop dancing at some point.
Yeah.
And it's such a cliff in ballet, and especially for women, because they've had to dedicate so much of their time, again, early in their training. It becomes, all that they know and all they're supposed to define themselves by. And I think that's a horrible mindset to give young women, because as we've seen, dancers only expand with life experience. They only grow with no more. So,
Human.
well, yes, human experience for sure.
No. Humans only grow with life
Oh,
experience.
absolutely.
So you hit the nail on the head. And so you're thrown in the deep end, right, Nicole? Learning by doing, right?
Yes.
How many artistic directors, and we know the ratio in the country, exactly that happened
Well, that's,
of huge companies.
yeah.
So you know what I say to you? Of course you can. That's what I say to you right now.
Yeah.
Because I've seen example and example and example over and over again of this happening. And it works. And they do have a team with them. But what I say to you is, of course you can.
Yeah.
Like there's no question in my mind, because first of all, dancers are some of the smartest, most intuitive, most complete human beings on the face of the earth. The totality of what we have to learn, right, on a daily basis,
Oh,
of,
absolutely.
of what we deal with, of what we learn, of the introspection. I'm just going to say it one more time. Of course you can.
Yeah. Well, and I think all the skills that dancers learn aren't reinforced to them for them to see themselves.
True.
I think so many dancers retire and don't realize they are brilliant people. They could do anything.
True.
And I think that's the same whether you're 17 graduating from ballet school or 40 and retiring from dancing professionally over many years. You've learned so many skills that are applicable everywhere. And I think just training in general, it only enhances what is around. How many companies would benefit greatly from a former dancer being their marketing director?
And it happens.
Exactly. And I wish there was more, again, opportunities for dancers to learn how to do things. I think that there's a real opportunity for us to invest in dancers as whole people and not just as a body on stage. And I don't know if that's always happening. And so, like you say, I think a lot of dancers, whether again they're students or professionals, they kind of stop dancing and they have mixed feelings about it at the end, and they don't come to the theater. They
Yeah,
just
but
support.
okay, but to be fair, I do believe it's happening more and more.
Oh, absolutely.
I have seen the evidence over these years, over my 16 years, as you said, in this position. I have seen great growth. I've seen dancers shadowing people in the development or marketing departments or physical therapy. And so I have seen evidence of it. Can there be more? Of course.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. Yeah, I know that there are people doing things, and I think it's just wonderful when we invest in the whole person in the company, for sure. I think what I like about my writing is that I sometimes think I'm just throwing an idea out there, or, sharing my own experience, and then the response I get with how many people have had the same experience, or that I may be putting words to something they couldn't feel or express, I should say. And so my hope with the writing is just that maybe I spark ideas in people, again, to open those doors. I think with everything I try to do, just keep opening doors for possibilities for anyone in dance to continue to love it for their entire lives.
Well, Nicole, that's beautiful. And you've said this a number of times. And the only thing I can tell you is someone who's so passionate as you are about how you want to impart the knowledge that you have, and also say hands are open, right? You are doing it, and you will. there's and you and the devotion that you have to growth. All this is, I mean, I see it all manifesting, and I even saw it as a dancer. So it's who you are. And you know, hearing you speak, I see a lot of myself in the things that you're saying. So there are, you know, there are so many like minds out there. And in, you know, as a wee bit older than you, all I say is, like, you know, stay the course, because you're doing it and you are touching people's lives. I just know it, you know, because again, I've known you for some years, not a lot, but through three, you know, three going through three ballets is definitely a journey. You know, it's, you know, it's a longer journey than one ballet. So in hearing you speak about it, the, you know, the inspiration you have within yourself to open doors for others, it's there, and I'm sure you're doing it. So I just, maybe it's just advocating for, you know, from one woman to another, but I see it so clearly, and I hear it so clearly in you.
Oh, thank you.
So, and the fact that you have writing as yet another vehicle to do this, I mean, you're reaching even more people.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Yeah. So, we are to the last three questions that I ask everybody. In supporting and building a more equitable dance community, let's say ballet community, what are some specific daily practices that one can be active with?
I mean, I think the beginner mindset is key. I think so much, especially in ballet, is tradition, what we grew up with, what was done before. And I don't think change will happen until we question what the status quo is. I think time and time again, we've seen that where something's brought to people's attention and it hadn't been thought about. It hadn't been questioned. It just kind of went down the river with everything else. So I really think approaching it with everything in ballet with curiosity, generosity, and community, and having that beginner's mindset to really listen to people who maybe don't feel they can always speak up, allow, again, that safe space for them to speak up. I think asking questions and really listening to the answer and not putting yourself into it again, but have the hard, you know, be uncomfortable. I think that's a thing we don't often do, is just be uncomfortable with maybe something we hadn't considered was uncomfortable for someone else. I, you know, every day I'm trying to find ways to make everyone feel included and a part of things. And I'm really hopeful, just with the 10 ladies I worked with this past year, their genuineness and, like, I don't want to use the word woke, but like their open-mindedness to things. Something as simple as asking, you know, I asked them what they would like to be called as a group, because I hate girls. Ladies sometimes feels a little weird. We had all women. And they were like, I think dancers, because you never know how someone really wants to be referred to as. Huh. And I would never have said that at 17. It wouldn't have even occurred to me. And I was so in awe of them, and they're there already. This like upcoming group is ready to make all these changes, and I think we have to be open to letting them help guide the way as well. Because again, it's so easy to change, like there's simple changes. So many things are simple changes, but it's deep seated in there of the tradition of ballet. Something as simple as flesh colored tights. You know, it's a simple change. You know, we changed one word of our dress code. But you have to be thinking, you have to question, you have to listen, you have to have that beginner's mindset to go back to your dress code. How long has that been written there? You know, I think there's so much we can do that really doesn't take that much time, but it takes a lot of thought.
Yeah, and you hearkened on something. Change takes as long as people want it to take, because we know change can happen quickly.
Oh,
It
free
can.
me some darker skin point shoes very quickly, all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great.
It's amazing. It
I mean, it needed to happen for so long, and I don't think it was all of a sudden. I think it was a big conversation, but it's there are many different flesh tones out there, so why don't we have some different flesh tones satin, for the point shoes and for the ballet slippers and for the tights, exactly like you said. Exactly. Yeah. So, in your whatever part of the career you want to go to, I am going to caveat, I say it to everybody, I know there you have many favorite memories, but one that comes up spontaneously right now, a favorite or impactful memory from your creative life.
can I give you two?
Okay.
Okay. Well, because I was going to say the one I want to talk about, my trainees, we were able to do a little showing for the staff, and watching them just shine after kind of being in a cocoon for 9 months with no one watching them. They were exhausted because we pretty much showed them everything we had learned the entire year. They were all, oh, I couldn't believe we did it twice through, but they killed it. And seeing them, we did a Q&A afterwards, they just soared. And I was so, so, so proud of them. And it wasn't really about me, but just watching that fulfilled my artistic soul of the joy and the hope of the future and where things are going. They just, yeah, I was blown away by their artistry, their maturity, their stamina, just overwhelmed. I think one of my favorite memories of, and it happened a lot in a little different ways, but when something doesn't go quite right on stage and everyone just comes together. I remember we were performing the Christmas ballet, Smee Ballet, beginning of Act 2, and the music cut out. And we're all rocking and rolling, the music comes back on. Great. Okay, we're all doing it. The music cut out again. Comes back on, where no one knows what's happening. And lovely Miss Erin Yarbrough Powell, who we're all walking in this little clump. She's like, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we all just busted out the end. I don't even know if we were in the right place in the music. It might have still been silent. But that, we're in this together. No one's freaking out. We are professionals. I think those moments were some of my favorite because you can't plan. It's that in the moment, I don't know, that tingling feeling, that sensation of immediacy, that it's just you guys on stage working together. And I think it just sums up my feeling of dance. When you're in the moment, you have a supportive group, whether they're in the wings or on the stage, and you guys are creating something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a great story afterwards. So those are some of the best.
Now, last question, and you've already offered so much. You've given so much, so generously. Are there any last insights that you can share about living a creative life?
I think curiosity and just do it. I think I am very good at doing this too, but it's so easy to overthink things or question or worry. And I will say the more you just go, I have heard someone on Freakonomics and sent them an email and been like, can I talk to you about sports psychology? talk to them for 2 hours. I read a New York Times article about a woman doing research on gymnasts past puberty and how they're actually thriving. She's in Sweden, talking to her tomorrow. Like, I went to coffee with Garrett 5 years ago. They needed someone. I got a job. You know, you never know where your creativity will take you if you just stay at home. You have to, again, take that risk. And I encourage everyone, again, where you feel safe, where you feel you can take those risks, but just do it. The worst that can happen is very slight, but staying in and not putting your art out there. If you love it, if you want to be a part of it, you know, ask for those opportunities, you know, send out your stuff. You never know what will happen. I think putting that out there is the best thing you can do for yourself. And believe, you know, what's the risk in believing in yourself?
Right on. Yes, Nicole. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. What an inspirational conversation. And also, you know, selfishly, just I love sitting down and talking with, you know, people in the dance world. You know, it's our small world, but, you know, sometimes it can be quite a hot minute before we see each other again.
Absolutely.
So really fun to listen to you today and to have a conversation. I want to direct viewers to find out more about you. So where can they find you? Is there a Ballet Idaho website you can link them to? Is there a personal?
Yeah, so Ballet Idaho has a website, and I'm on there, and you can learn more about the trainee program and the company if you are interested. I'm at NicoleHaskins.com, which was a very big feat for me, figuring out the internet. I am on Instagram at DanceMaker101, which was my very first email address, and somehow just haven't gotten around to changing that, so you're welcome. And I'm on Vimeo as well.
Okay, great. So in the description box below the video, you'll find a short bio from Nicole. We have new guests every week. Our next interview will feature Kathleen Fitzgerald. Kathleen is a freelance performer and a teacher, and she was also a colleague at Ballet Frankfurt, and she's another extraordinary woman. Now time for thanks. Gracie Spina, you know who you are. Thank you so much for all you do. Thank you to our beautiful dance community, right, Nicole, for holding us up and giving us strength every single day and inspiration. And thank you to you. Really wonderful to listen to you today, Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Bye.